Welcome, distinguished viewers, to the Age of Steel and Fire. Dear audience, in recent times we often hear the Asean online community comparing the development of member nations, from economy and politics to defense and diplomacy. These debates are lively, sometimes emotional, yet one crucial factor is rarely mentioned: the time of peace available for development. Peace is not merely the absence of war, it is the foundation for economic growth, political stability, military modernization, and diplomatic expansion. A nation with decades of uninterrupted peace enjoys a significant advantage compared to one that has endured wars, embargoes, or prolonged instability. In this video, Hector and Chronos will analyze the differences in peaceful development time among Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and the Philippines, to reveal a more comprehensive picture of ASEAN's trajectory. Before we begin, we emphasize that this is purely a personal analysis. Any nation within ASEAN achieving remarkable progress brings collective benefits to the entire bloc, strengthening ASEAN as a prosperous and resilient community. When discussing ASEAN's development, Vietnam stands out as a unique case. For decades, the nation endured devastating wars: the resistance against France, the war against the United States, and border conflicts in both the southwest and the north. Each conflict left deep scars, slowing progress in economy, politics, defense, and diplomacy. After 1975, Vietnam entered a unified era but faced another challenge. The country was devastated by an amount of bombs equal to nearly 3 times the total number of bombs dropped by all countries in World War II, and 75 million liters of toxic chemicals, nearly 20 years of international embargo. While other ASEAN nations enjoyed peace to focus on growth, Vietnam struggled in isolation, relying on self-sufficiency. It was only in 1995, with the normalization of relations with the United States and Vietnam's accession to ASEAN, that the country truly entered a phase of peace and full integration. Since then, Vietnam has had about 30 years of continuous peace, shorter than most neighbors, yet marked by remarkable growth. What makes Vietnam exceptional is that its history of war and embargo forged resilience, adaptability, and a distinct development strategy. Rather than relying solely on imports, Vietnam emphasizes technological self-reliance, building defense and diplomacy alongside economic growth. This is why Vietnam stands out in the region, despite its later start. To gain a comprehensive view, let us examine other ASEAN nations. Each country has its own timeline of peaceful development, shaping its current position. Indonesia. After independence in 1949, Indonesia faced internal unrest, from Aceh and Papua to East Timor. Yet it did not fight a full-scale war against foreign powers. Thus, Indonesia enjoyed over 50 years of relative peace, though occasionally disrupted by local conflicts. Thailand. A rare case in the region, Thailand has not experienced major wars since World War II. With over 70 years of external peace, it focused on economic growth. Despite internal political instability, military coups, and southern insurgency, Thailand maintained a generally stable environment for development. Malaysia. After independence in 1957, Malaysia faced a communist insurgency until 1989. Since then, it has had over 35 years of continuous peace, enabling economic progress and defense consolidation. Philippines. Since independence in 1946, the Philippines has struggled with internal conflict in Mindanao. Peace agreements were signed, but instability persisted. Thus, the Philippines has relative but incomplete peace, slowing its development. Singapore, a unique case. After separating from Malaysia in 1965, Singapore entered over 60 years of uninterrupted peace. With no major wars or internal conflicts, it focused entirely on economic growth, political stability, modern defense, and multilateral diplomacy. This long peace allowed Singapore to achieve the highest GDP per capita in ASEAN and build a technologically advanced military despite its small size. At this point, the real question isn't who's stronger, but how many uninterrupted years of peace has each country had to accumulate strength? National power rarely spikes overnight, It's built through time, discipline, and orchestration across economy, politics, defense, and diplomacy. Place them on the same timeline: Vietnam with roughly 30 years of continuous integration, Malaysia over 35, Indonesia over 50, Thailand over 70, and Singapore more than 60 with minimal disruption. This axis doesn't explain everything, but it clarifies why their growth curves differ. Economy: long peace enabled Singapore and Thailand to attract capital and technology early, becoming production, services hubs. Indonesia leveraged a large domestic market. Malaysia consolidated industry and finance after ending insurgency. Vietnam, a late starter, accelerated through reforms, FDI inflows, and export-led industrialization. Politics: stability allows institutions to learn and refine rules. Singapore built high-efficiency governance. Thailand, despite political interruptions, kept administrative, economic machinery running. Indonesia transformed after Suharto, broadening democracy. Vietnam's political stability underpinned reforms and integration, enabling synchronized policy execution. Defense: long peace optimizes procurement, training, and standardization. Singapore built a high-tech model aligned with modern warfare. Thailand and Malaysia maintained regional balance with versatile forces. Indonesia developed breadth to fit archipelagic geography. Vietnam took a distinct path, building indigenous technological capacity, radar, UAVs, electronic warfare, to compensate shorter time with higher quality, homegrown capability. Diplomacy: continuous peace expands partnership networks and trade pacts, uplifting status. Singapore sets high negotiation standards. Thailand balances major powers with agility. Indonesia plays leadership roles in ASEAN and G20. Vietnam accelerates multilateral integration, positioning itself as an independent, reliable partner. Soft power amassed rapidly in 3 decades. If we look only at the current snapshot, we miss the time curve. Singapore sits atop due to a long peace foundation, efficient governance, and tech strategy. Thailand and Indonesia benefit from time and scale. Malaysia consolidates after internal stabilization. Vietnam, despite starting late, shows a rare acceleration: political stability, economic reform, defense tech self-reliance, and deep diplomacy. Thus, it's less about overtaking and more about distinct trajectories shaped by the length of peace and how each nation uses peace to accumulate power. These different trajectories compose ASEAN's mosaic, and they demand adding the time dimension for fair comparisons. Now we connect Vietnam's trajectory to the global context, to understand why its position within ASEAN is rising in its own distinctive way. Politics first. Vietnam maintains a stable one-party system, operating through collective leadership, consensus, and institutional discipline. Historically, some nations have concentrated power to prioritize development. Post-war Japan is an example of high social consensus and focused industrialization. Vietnam's current approach is a specific version of that logic: political stability as a flat foundation for economic reforms, diplomatic expansion, and defense modernization. On the military front, Vietnam is uniquely the only country in the region with experience in full-scale wars against major powers, leaving a legacy in operations, societal mobilization, and depth of defense. The key lesson, however, is resource discipline. Defense spending is used prudently, emphasizing technological self-reliance, radar, UAVs, electronic warfare, to create a quality lever that compensates for fewer peaceful decades. Diplomacy accumulates soft power. Vietnam pursues multilateralism, broadens partnerships, and upgrades ties with major centers of power. Moves such as elevating relations with key partners, joining high-standard trade pacts, and playing a more prominent role in ASEAN shape the image of an independent, balanced, and reliable actor. Looking ahead, attracting international organizations to open regional offices or hubs in Vietnam is plausible if stability, institutional capability, and global connectivity continue to deepen. Zooming out, the world is entering an era of tech competition, supply chain fragmentation, and security restructuring. Nations combining political stability, technological capacity, and agile diplomacy will endure volatility. Vietnam's advantage is resilience, rooted in history, and adaptability, forged through integration, an uncommon blend for a late starter. For ASEAN, the implication is clear. Each country's distinct trajectory means the bloc's strength rests on complementarity. Vietnam brings critical components, security experience, endogenous defense tech, and a bridging role in multilateral forums. That's why fair comparisons within ASEAN need the peacetime dimension. To see that any member's leap forward increases the collective benefit of the entire bloc. Throughout this journey, we have revisited a fundamental yet often overlooked factor: the time of peace available for development. Vietnam, with only about 30 years of continuous integration, has achieved remarkable progress in economy, politics, defense, and diplomacy. Meanwhile, nations like Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines have had longer timelines, each following its own trajectory, shaping ASEAN's diverse mosaic. The key point is this: comparison is not about winners and losers, but about understanding context and appreciating each nation's value. Vietnam stands out for its rapid growth and adaptability in a short span. Singapore shines with long stability and technological strategy. Others contribute through scale, geography, and unique experiences. Together, they form ASEAN's collective strength. Before closing, Hector and Chronos emphasize, this is a personal analysis. Any nation in ASEAN achieving outstanding progress benefits the entire bloc, building a stronger, more prosperous, and balanced ASEAN in the 21st century. And now, we leave the questions to you. Which nation do you think is using its peacetime most effectively? Can Vietnam, with its rapid acceleration, rise to match countries with longer foundations like Singapore and Thailand? Share your thoughts, because it is the community's discussion that makes ASEAN's story truly alive.